today's guest is Brent Maugel of Maugel Architects. And how are you doing today, Brent?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you again. Although I wish it was in person, but this will have to do for a while, as I understand.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a way of interaction for at least another month or so.
That's the way it sounds.
Hopefully that's it.
But we're lucky to have it because we're able to continue businesses pretty much as usual and stay connected with our clients and our employees. So it's a blessing.
Yeah. So how is Maugel Architects dealing with all of this, especially on the architect side of things?
Yeah, Rick, we're pretty lucky because we had been aware of this early and we took it seriously early. And we shut down the office over 2 weeks ago before it was mandated. And we encouraged people to, I think it was on a Thursday afternoon, said, get all your stuff, go home, and we'll connect with you online. And because we have so many young families that have kids that appreciate flex time, we already had the remote capabilities set up for most people. And it wasn't like flicking a switch, but over the course of the weekend, we had everybody online with video sharing, and we can do most anything that we were doing before, although it's more fun to do it in person than over a video screen. But well, the office is completely shut down for people coming to it, with the exception of anybody has to pick anything up. And then we notify each other online that says, Brent's going to be at the office for this interview tomorrow from 10 o'clock till 11 o'clock, so people know if anybody's going to be in the office. And we make sure that no more than 2 or 3 people are in the office at a time, and make sure they stay away from each other. Give a wave from across the office, but we're very vigilant about our separation.
So has it somewhat been business as usual?
Well, it surprises me. We've had, we anticipated that activities would drop off like off the edge of a table, but we have about somewhere between 50 and 60 projects on the books right now, and only 2 of them have put a hold on it. One was a multifamily housing project where the investors were private. It was private ownership, and they said, we're just at the start of this thing, let's put it on hold for a little while. The second was delayed only because it was in the permitting process. It was 300 unit 40B project. And because the town didn't want to have public hearings, that project has slowed. But for the most part, we're still very active. Phone is ringing, getting a lot of emails, a lot of RFP requests. And so we're pleasantly surprised that the pipeline continues.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been doing quite a few of these interviews, and that's a question I ask almost everyone. And most people are telling me that, yeah, we're surprised how smooth things are really running, everyone being out of the office.
Yeah.
And you're right, because of the new technologies, we can afford to do something like that. But yeah. It's unique.
It is.
But I think it's something that it's going to be the new way of working.
Yeah. I'll take this opportunity to shout out a thank you to the staff, because they've embraced this technology, and they're over communicating, not in a bad way, but really working hard to keep communications going. So if any of my staff do this sometime, thanks. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, this is a good question for you. Is this going to change how you will configure offices and new properties? Because if this works out for a lot of companies, they can have a lot of employees staying at home and work from home.
It's funny, Rick, that this started before the virus, this technology and the remote working. As I mentioned, flex time was important to some people. kids out of school for one reason or another, or kids sick, they enjoyed staying home. And the millennials, as you know, prefer the flexibility of how they spend their time. So it began before the virus, but I think the virus has opened our eyes to how much we can do with the technologies of screen sharing, and everybody can log into the network and find what they need. So it was kind of a wake-up call to us to say, hey, this technology can work for more than just inconveniences. So you might see it affect the real estate industry in terms of how much space is devoted to a company that's got 100 people. Maybe there will be more, maybe 10 or 15% working more remotely. However, I still think that as humans, we need interaction, we need collaboration, we need face-to-face, we need to feel like we belong to something. So I think as soon as physically possible, we'll all rejoice at the day we get back to being in the office and sharing time together.
I definitely agree with that, because I'm dying because I don't have any human interaction with, and I meet so many people during, day-to-day workday.
You look a little lonely today, Rick.
It is. That's why I got to do these interviews, and I'm doing so many now.
Good.
So that's it. It's definitely changed my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your final thoughts on what do you think is going to fall out of this? As far as, do you think, how long do you think this is going to go? How long is your company going to be able to operate? And is the the care package that the government is putting out for you, is that going to help you sustain yourself for a lifetime?
Yeah, without question. We're very, very relieved about that, because it essentially means that we're now hopeful that we can keep all our employees employed through a long duration of time. By long, we're expecting this to be at least a month at best, and 3 months at worst. So we've already projected how we can keep people employed if there is a downturn in the pipeline. We think that if there's a downturn in the pipeline, it'll be Q3, not Q2, because we already have work on the drafting boards. And so we're anticipating that the CARE Act in particular will allow us to keep people employed, will allow us to continue to match their 401ks. And from a financial standpoint, it just really helps with morale and helps people have hope that their lives, although disrupted quite a bit already, will not be disrupted on a financial basis. So we're very appreciative that the government went to such extremes to take care of small businesses in particular. And I guess I've answered a couple of your questions in there in terms of the duration of this. I would like to say, I want to fit in before we forget it, an appreciation for those that are on the front lines. It's pretty easy for us to continue work from remotely because we're not being exposed to anything, but those people that are in the healthcare industry and the hospitals, and certainly have to appreciate what they're doing, the bravery that they exhibit, exposing themselves to this virus day by day. I think, and back to the CARE Act, that is critically important for those people that can't continue to do their jobs, like the restaurateurs and the hospitality people and travel, and those people that don't have the luxury of having work in the pipeline and being able to work from home with the technologies that we have. So that act will particularly help those people.
Well, that's also, they're having their issues right now, but once this even ends, there's going to be an after effect.
Yeah.
People are still going to be a little nervous going into crowds. I know it's going to affect what I do because I put on these conferences.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to have to be 6 feet apart.
Yeah.
But the same thing will happen with a restaurant, a bar. You're not going to cozy up to the bar sitting elbow to elbow with someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. After effect of this will last far more than 2 or 3 months, and we'll have to look towards that. In fact, we've got some people that are interested in, because we do so much healthcare work, and life sciences work. They're interested in developing new process for design that will combat viruses in the future. For example, the materials you put into a doctor's office building, some will harbor the virus longer than others. So we think that one of the after effects of this will be a new way of looking at how to protect people in buildings that we design. You know, if you think back historically, it's interesting that buildings, designers and commercial real estate people and developers have this power or this obligation or responsibility to protect people that are in their buildings. And so if you think back, you know, buildings were originally protecting us from the elements, right? And then it was fires of Chicago. It changed how we did designs and buildings. And then it was, you know, earthquakes, seismic design, hurricanes, terrorism. This evolution of how we design buildings has been more and more about protecting people from today's harm. And now we're going to design buildings that try to protect people from viruses. So that will be happening for years to come after this.
It's a changing world.
It is.
And very quickly. We're running out of time. What are your final thoughts on how long do you think this is going to last?
I'd like to err on the side of caution and say it'll be 3 months before we're back to some sort of normalcy. I think it's beyond that, as you mentioned, in terms of how people interact in large groups. But I would hope that this time next year, you and I are sitting near each other, having a conversation about how this country came together and got through it, and have a new appreciation for Americans and the people on our staffs, and just how responsible they are taking this, and how responsible they're being in separation and dealing with this issue. So I appreciate that you're helping with the communication about it, and getting people together as best we can with using this technology. We always appreciate what you do, Rick, and the New England Real Estate Journal.
Well, Brent, we appreciate you as well. We appreciate Maugel for supporting the journal. From, you know, journal's been around for 53 years. We want to continue going on for another 53. So we support
you.
What was that?
Almost as long as you've been around.
Yeah, I wish. I wish. Well, I want to thank you, Brent. I wish everyone in your office, as well as yourself, are safe and stay healthy.
Yep.
And hopefully we'll see you at our conferences in the next 3 months or so, and we'll see you in person.
So let's all stay vigilant and get this thing over with.
That's right.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Brent.
All right.
Thank you for watching today's interview. If you'd like to be a guest, a sponsor, or even advertise in the New England Real Estate Journal, you'll find our contact information in the description box below. You can also find all our social media platforms so you can follow us, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel.